traffic ground to a halt, shops and offices without lights, as Moldova plunged into darkness with widespread power outages caused by a fresh barrage of Russian strikes.
Russia's relentless assault on Ukraine's power infrastructure has triggered catastrophic consequences beyond Ukrainian borders. In late January 2026, we witnessed 70% of Moldova plunged into complete darkness as cascading grid failures spread across an entire neutral nation. Share this with everyone you know, because what happened on January 31st, 2026 wasn't just a power failure. It was the moment a neutral European country discovered that neutrality offers zero protection when Moscow decides to destroy your neighbor's infrastructure. Before we break down how Russian missiles turned Moldova into a frozen hellscape, subscribe to State's Brief Network, where we deliver the unfiltered military intel that mainstream media won't touch. At 10:42 a.m. on January 31st, the lights went out. Not in one neighborhood, not in one district, across 2/3 of the entire country. Moldova's capital, Chisinau, went completely dark. Traffic lights failed at every major intersection. Trolley buses carrying hundreds of passengers stopped dead in the streets. Border crossings with Ukraine and Romania shut down as customs databases crashed. Hospitals switched to emergency generators. Dozens of people trapped in stopped elevators screaming for help. Families with children sitting in pitch-black apartments as temperatures dropped. Elderly residents watching their electric heaters go cold. This was a winter blackout during Moldova's harshest weather in years. The Moldovan Energy Ministry reported a catastrophic voltage drop on the 400 kV Izaxia Vulcanești MGRES transmission line, the critical power artery connecting Romania, Ukraine, and Moldova. This voltage collapse triggered automatic protection systems that disconnected Moldova's entire electrical grid in seconds. Energy Minister Dorin Georguetu didn't mince words. Serious problems in Ukraine's power grid caused the blackout. Translation: Russia's systematic destruction of Ukrainian energy infrastructure just plunged an entire neighboring country into darkness. But here's what Russia has been hiding from the international community about their real strategy. For weeks before January 31st, Moscow hammered Ukraine with massive combined attacks: cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, Iranian Shahed drones, targeting power plants, substations, transmission lines. The accumulated damage created a fragile network operating on the edge of total collapse. This wasn't random destruction. This was a calculated campaign to create exactly this kind of cascading failure that would spread beyond Ukraine's borders. Ukraine's power deficit reached $7 during peak hours, 35% of total consumption gone. Russian occupation of Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant removed $6 from the grid. Missile strikes destroyed another $19 of generating capacity. What remained was a crippled system barely functional, held together by Ukrainian engineers working around the clock just to keep minimal power flowing to essential services. Then on Saturday morning, 2 critical transmission lines failed simultaneously: a 750 kV line connecting western and central Ukraine and the 400 kV line linking Romania, Moldova, Ukraine. The dual failure was catastrophic because these lines carried massive power loads and served as critical grid interconnection points that allowed electricity to flow between different regions and different countries. When the voltage dropped in Ukraine, Moldova felt it instantly. The power systems are interconnected through multiple high-voltage transmission lines. Disruptions on either side directly affect the other. As Ukraine's grid buckled under Russian damage, the shockwave crossed international borders with devastating speed. In Chisinau, Mayor Ion Seban reported the largest part of the capital without electricity. Hundreds of passengers stranded as trolley buses stopped mid-route. Police deployed to manually control traffic at major intersections. Mobile networks crashed. Pharmacies locked their doors. Residents couldn't enter their own apartments because electronic locks required power. ATMs stopped dispensing cash. Gas stations couldn't pump fuel. Smartphones drained with no way to recharge. The digital infrastructure modern life depends on simply vanished in an instant. People who relied on oxygen concentrators, CPAP machines, powered wheelchairs, suddenly without essential equipment. Pharmacies closed, couldn't dispense critical medications. All medical facilities switched to emergency generators, but the vulnerability was terrifying. Border crossing points and customs facilities lost power. Emergency generators activated where available, but Ukraine's border police required manual passport processing after customs headquarters systems crashed. The international flow of people and goods stopped. Think about what this means for Moldova's security assumptions. This wasn't just infrastructure failure. It was psychological devastation that shattered Moldova's illusion of neutrality. For years, Moldovans believed avoiding alignment would protect them. The sudden darkness destroyed that belief in the most visceral way possible. When Russian strikes indirectly cut electricity and Russian drones crossed Moldovan territory, the gap between Moscow's assurances and their actions became impossible to ignore. Moldova had already experienced Russian drone violations repeatedly in the months before the blackout. November 25, 2025, 6 Russian drones crossed into Moldova during a massive Ukraine attack, one crashing onto a home roof. February 2025, 2 Russian Shahed drones exploded on Moldovan soil after attacking Ukraine's Reni port, just 9 kilometers from Moldova's border. January 17, 2026, a Russian Gerbera drone discovered crashed 54 kilometers inside Moldova. President Maya Sandu condemned the violations. Shahed drones violated our airspace. 2 exploded on our soil, putting Moldovan lives at risk. Each incident proved Moldova's neutrality meant nothing when Russian weapons started falling from the sky. But here's the part that should terrify every country in Eastern Europe. The energy crisis exposed Moldova's extreme vulnerability in ways that government officials had desperately tried to hide from the public. While Moldova doesn't rely on Russia for electricity generation, it's completely dependent on high-voltage transmission lines passing through Ukraine and Russian-backed Transnistria. When those lines fail, Moldova goes dark with absolutely no domestic alternatives. The Moldovan government has been building 3 new transmission lines to reduce this vulnerability. First, Vulcanești-Chișinău line funded by World Bank, completed and tested but awaiting final certification. Second, Bălți-Suceava line to Romania, European-funded, planned completion late 2027. Third, Strășeni-Gutinaș line, fully funded by a $130 million U.S. grant, timeline unannounced. None of these were operational when Moldova went dark. The country sat helpless, dependent on the same infrastructure Russia was systematically destroying just across the border. Restoration began immediately as utility workers scrambled to bring the system back online. By 3 p.m., Chisinau's trolley buses restarted. By 3:40, hospitals and medical facilities back online. After 4 p.m., Energy Minister Junghietu announced electricity distribution operators had reconnected consumers, stating the national power system is operating within normal parameters. The blackout lasted 5 hours. Massive losses avoided only because it happened on a weekend when industrial facilities were offline. If this hit during weekday rush hour, economic devastation measuring tens of millions in damages. But officials warned, Moldova's energy system is completely dependent on Romanian and Ukrainian grids, and any fluctuations instantly affect Moldova. This will happen again. In Ukraine, the situation was catastrophic. Kyiv's metro halted, stranding thousands underground in darkness. Water supplies cut to the capital, millions without water for drinking, cooking, sanitation. Heating systems failed as temperatures hit 20-degree, families huddling for warmth. Blackouts across Kyiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Odessa, Zhytomyr, Kharkiv regions. Forecasters warned temperatures could drop to 28 degrees. Ukrainian authorities scrambled to set up warming centers. The scale affected millions across multiple regions. Nuclear power plant units automatically shut down when the grid destabilized, removing more generation capacity. Water treatment plants struggled on backup power. Telecommunications networks crashed as cell towers depleted batteries. Ukrainian Energy Minister warned of significant electricity deficit continuing, with regions remaining under emergency outage schedules. Russia's months of strikes left Ukraine's grid in permanently fragile condition, vulnerable to cascading failures spreading across borders. Then came the revelation about the diplomatic failures surrounding this crisis. The blackout occurred days after Trump said he asked Russia to pause strikes, and the Kremlin claimed to halt attacks until February 1st. Yet Ukraine's grid failed anyway, proving accumulated damage created vulnerabilities persisting even during strike pauses. The infrastructure damage was so severe that even without active Russian attacks, the system remained on the brink of catastrophic collapse. For Moldova, the blackout marked a strategic turning point. The incident transformed abstract risks into concrete vulnerabilities, forcing security reassessment. When the lights went out, Moldova's declared neutrality was exposed as meaningless protection. Ukraine has positioned itself as Moldova's security partner. Kyiv framed Moldovan security as inseparable from Ukraine's defense, emphasizing coordination and shared threats. Ukraine secured the Ukrainian-Moldovan border and shared intelligence, effectively insulating Moldova from direct spillover. Romania's role became critical. Energy interconnections with Romania provided backup routes allowing Moldova's restoration. Since 2022, Moldova increasingly relies on electricity imports from Ukraine and Romania. The blackout showed both value and limitations. Romania helped recovery, but couldn't prevent the outage. The pattern is undeniable. Russia's war systematically targets Ukrainian civilian energy infrastructure, creating rolling blackouts, heating failures, water shortages designed to break morale. But effects don't stay within Ukraine's borders. Every destroyed power plant, transmission line, transformer creates ripple effects spreading across interconnected grids into neighboring countries. Former Moldovan PM Vladimir Filat stated the blackout demonstrated failures of public administration. Opposition politicians accused government of disastrous energy policy and inadequate reserves. Political fallout continues with resignation calls for energy officials. But political failures obscure fundamental reality. Moldova went dark because Russia is destroying Ukraine's grid, and Moldova's energy security depends on that grid functioning. No domestic policy reform changes the fact Moldova's transmission lines run through active combat zones in a war it cannot stop. The psychological impact on Moldovans is profound. For years, many believed neutrality would keep them safe, that non-alignment created protection from war next door. The blackout shattered that illusion in the most visceral way, turning out lights while families sat in darkness wondering if they should flee. One thing is absolutely certain: Moldova's January 31st blackout was not an isolated technical failure. It was direct consequence of Russia's systematic campaign destroying Ukraine's energy infrastructure, a campaign creating cascading vulnerabilities affecting millions across multiple countries. As Russia continues targeting Ukrainian power plants and transmission lines, future blackout risk in Moldova and neighboring countries remains high. The next darkness could come without warning, and Moldova's vulnerability persists until new transmission lines bypass conflict zones entirely. Next 72 hours determine everything. Our update continues. Stay tuned.